have helped me reparent my inner child and coach my inner child when things would be annoying. And sometimes she'll be like, Felicia, you gotta practice it. You gotta be an example. I'm like, okay, girl. I mean, I say okay, but in my mind, I'd be like, okay.
What's up, y'all? It's Ashley.
I'm Fee.
It's Melanie.
And Cody here. And you've tapped into
The Mama's Den.
Welcome back to the Mama's Den, everybody.
Hi, welcome back to the Mama's Den. I'm here with all of my food rent.
Okay.
You're what?
All right, foot rins.
Foot rins.
All right.
Right, foot rins.
Foot rins.
You're tired.
Yeah,
Aww.
it's delirious.
You know what?
It's giving Tata. It's giving a brown Tata.
It's giving Tata.
What's happening?
What's happening? Okay,
I feel
so
like Felicia should introduce
What's
this.
happening?
she told should, but first we're going to introduce ourselves.
Oh,
Ow. Remember that? Because we have new listeners, new watchers week after week. And when we talk over each other, thank you.
Y'all didn't leave that in
Start
2024?
Everybody start over.
Okay,
I'm
1,
rubbing
2,
my
3.
temples for the audio
He has
listeners.
a full migraine.
We're
And a
starting
cute
over.
headband. Okay, my name's Cody. I am 1/4 of the Mama's Den, and I have 3 kids: 6-year-old twins, Aristotle and Langston, and 8-year-old Brooks. 3 rambunctious boys.
Good alliteration there.
Mic drop.
It was.
Hi, I'm Melanie Fiona. I have 2 children. 8, Cameron. Well, Cameron is 8. 8 Cameron. Cameron is 8 and Kaya is 3 nature.
What about you?
Hi, I'm Ashley Chia, and I have 4 daughters.
Damn.
Damn!
I hate all of
That's all right. You know, when it happens twice, it's even funnier.
Oh, God.
Oh, gosh.
Sorry.
Is this your first time
It is.
on this podcast, Ashley?
Absolutely. Hi, this is my first day. I'm Ashley Chia. I have 4 daughters. Mira Lee, she is 15, turning 16 soon. Zara, she's 8. Asia is 6. Atalia is 3. I did it, Joe.
You didn't.
I'm Fee. I have 2 kids. I have Peace and Zen. Peace is 10 and Zen is about to be 6. And guess what?
What?
We have somebody so special to me and my children
Yes.
in the den. She helps me with parenting them. She helps me with just really teaching them to check themselves before I have to check them.
Check themselves
In
before
the
they wreck
most
themselves.
graceful way. What do we call? I feel like sometimes it's weird for me to call you their therapist, but what is the proper term?
Behavioral coach.
Okay, so this is Marnesha.
I can't do it on the couch.
And this is my children's behavioral coach, and she is just so phenomenal. We are so happy to have you here.
We are.
Well, thank you.
We've
Welcome.
been sharing. I'm sure the listeners, they're excited to hear from you.
They're like, yay, Marnisha.
Marnisha's in a den.
I appreciate it.
I know her nails always be cute.
But no, thank you. I feel like I was telling Felicia, you guys are like my homegirls without my homegirls. I've gotten so many clientele from you guys that it's been amazing. They're like, I heard your name on the podcast, and I was like, those are my friends.
Yes.
Those are my friends.
So we get discounts, what you say?
Ooh, we'll talk about that.
Negotiator.
No, the answer is no.
So yeah, my name is Marnesha Hall. I am a youth behavioral coach, and I'm so excited to be here with you guys on Mama's Den.
Yeah.
Yay.
We are excited to have you. I met Marnesha because I needed someone to help me with one of my children's attitude and energy. And then we realized it was multiple parts. So it's the parenting and how to parent attitudes and tantrums and all the things. But I met her through my therapist, who is like a big sister to me, is like a big sister to Marnesha. And me and Marnesha have become, she's my kids' behavioral coach, but she my friend on the side. And she's my
Listen,
sister.
anybody gonna help you coach your kids is your friend.
I know.
That's
And, right. And
Yeah.
she is a woman of God, so we connect so much on the Lord Jesus. So, yeah, girl. Y'all ask away.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
can you share with us how you got started and just share a little bit about yourself as well?
Yeah, so actually my journey is kind of like, you know how sometimes you kind of deviate from, what God has actually called you to do, but you find yourself back there. So that's a lot of my process, right? So I think when I was younger, I remember I actually was in connection. When I was in the 7th grade, I used to go to an after school program, and there was this little boy there who now I know had behavioral concerns. And somehow, some way, when he went to school, he actually told one of his the teachers, like, I have a friend that goes to after school program. Can she come down to the elementary to help him and mentor him, right? So, and I, not knowing that friend was me. And so I went down, I was actually his mentor. And for me, that just sparked up a lot of like, I want to be somebody that kids can look up to, right? Or somebody who's younger than me. Like, I want to be a role model, right? But then obviously life happens. I think, you know, I lost my brother in the process, and I kind of steered away from that, right? So I was always an athlete. I played Division I basketball, and I kind of just was going through the motions, you know, just trying to get through the day, right? Then fast forward after college, I started back working with kids in different populations. So I started working with kids in like underserved populations, like foster homes, group homes, and I just really grew this passion for like youth and just how much like they, like somebody who has a background not just in basketball, but who can actually like understand the steps that they're taking and walk the life of them. I really just wanted to be somebody that they, like I hear you, I see you, right? So that's kind of how I started gleaning into the workforce in those type of situations and those type of workforces. And yeah, I just grew a passion for it. But when I entered into entrepreneurship, again, I did not enter as a behavioral coach, right? I actually entered in entrepreneurship as a personal trainer, right? But as I was personal training, I was like, my heart's still not full. Like there's something missing, right? And I tried to get away. That's why I said God brought me here, because I actually tried to get away from behavioral coaching, only because the agency that I was working for was very heavy, right? But then I realized, no, like that's where I need to be. Those kids need me. And so then I started my own business, and now I'm here and I love it, and it's the best decision of my life. So yeah.
I feel like you're also like a parent coach in it, you know? Like I feel with me and their father, you coach the kids, but it's just the way that you coach them, and then you turn around and teach us how to understand what they're going through. Yeah. And I think I've told you multiple times, you have helped me re-parent my inner child and coach my inner child when things would be annoying. And sometimes she'll be like, you know, Felicia, you gotta practice it. You gotta be an example. I'm like, okay, girl. I mean, I say okay, but in my mind, I'd be like, because it's a whole thing. But
it's definitely a family dynamic. So, you know, I am a behavioral coach, and I think when parents and families, they first start off with me, we are targeting a behavior, right? But it's never just that behavior. You know, it's a family dynamic, and I always say, like with the parents, like we partners, like we're all in this together. Like we're trying to come together. You have your expertise in your child. I have the expertise in knowing behavior patterns. Now, how can we do that to better serve what we're trying to you know, accomplish inside of the home? And so it's not just the child. I tell the families all the time, like, and when I present it to the kid, like, this is for the family dynamic as a whole. You know, there's growth in everybody in this house, you know, and so that's kind of
everybody's got to be willing to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And it has to so yeah, so it's a family process.
So when you start, right? So I have multiple questions. So one is like, what kinds of issues, without like spilling anybody's personal lives, but like what kinds of issues might somebody come to you with? And, you know, because I know right now me and Melanie dealing with like sleep issues, like that's one thing. But
Melanie,
listen, you got 4 girls. That's
like
what you say.
Sleep issues or like your personal sleep issues?
Children's behavior between the hours of 8 p.m. and 6 a.m., I would say, that cause sleep issues for both the child and me personally, and I believe my friend here, Melanie.
And your friend Ashley.
And my friend Ashley.
Who has a 3-year-old.
Who recently hit me with the reverse Uno, because I always said, like, I have a 3-year-old who I've never had a day's worry about how she naps and how she sleeps, and all of a sudden, she just decided, I don't want to sleep anymore. I want to sleep in your bed, and just energetically, it's just things. I've literally turned, it's crazy that you're asking this, because I've turned to my husband and I was like, I think we need to enlist somebody to help us, because her personality has taken such a turn in a different direction that it feels more unpredictable. And I truly feel like I was so happy that you were going to be here today because I really like, I understand why there are people. You need help. You don't have the tools. Like, I don't feel like I have the tools right now to know how to outsmart this 3-year-old right now. And she's very different from my 8-year-old.
That's a good
it's
word.
Outsmart. It's you have to outsmart them while guiding them and seeing them and honoring them. And it's a real challenge. So like, what are the indicators, I think, for you when you feel like, what is the cues for the parents or for children when it's like, I think we might need to enlist some external help?
So personally, I feel like every kid can benefit from behavioral coaching because there's nothing that a kid, like, because it's all about how to regulate your emotions, how to problem solve, how to have positive peer interactions, right? Everything that's going to allow you to thrive in the social setting and in the real world. So when you say like, is there a certain kind of kid? I don't think there's a certain kind of kid. I think every kid should have behavioral coaching because it sets them up for success, right? Because I'm giving them skills and I'm helping the parents and we're navigating things that may seem like micro now, like conflict, right? They may have conflict with their sibling now, but they're going to have conflict in the workforce when they have a boss, when they have employers, you know? And so everything that we're teaching them can be set up for success. So I think every kid can benefit from it.
So how do you start?
What do you mean?
Like if I come to you and I say, my child, I'm trying to outsmart this child who has 47 things to do between the hours of 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. I'm just making that up, but they definitely do. The way they came in my room 10 times last night.
Busy nowadays.
But my child is having issues expressing their emotions.
Right.
They have an outburst when I know they're sad or upset about something, but they're just losing it instead of us talking about it. Like, where do you start?
Yeah, so I think first I would come into the home and I always want to make sure the kids know that this is not just about you. It's about the family, kind of like I said. And then just starting very basic. So the first thing I always do is I start off by seeing how aware the kid is of their emotions, right? So what does it mean when you're mad? What does it mean when you're sad? What does it mean when you're happy, right? And then I take those emotions and I identify to the physical reaction now, right? So when you get mad, what does it feel like? And most kids are like, I clench my hands, I stomp my feet, so that's usually their explanation. And then, okay, so when you're mad, and I do the same thing for happy and sad too, all the emotions. So you know that when you're mad, this happens. So now that you know that there's signs that you're getting mad, what coping skill can we utilize in order to stop you from the stomping your feet and catching, right? So I've had kids literally come in and be like, like, right? Because we talked about deep breathing. So that would be my first step. I always start with emotions because emotions lead to so many other behaviors. Right? So that's always my starting point.
So, okay, Fee isn't a co-parenting situation, but sometimes people are married.
Right.
And it's like
sometimes people are married.
Sometimes people are married.
I know why that sounds funny.
Half in, half out.
And sometimes it's like you co-parent. Well, good.
Right.
It would be great if you were. Actually, everyone should be co-parenting. If I believe, you know what I mean.
So too.
But some people are married and they're not co-parenting.
Yeah,
is what I mean.
real.
And so, how does it work when, like, for Felicia, she doesn't have to tell her personal business, but if you're coming into her home, helping her with her children, like, how are you teaching them the tools when they're not in her house? And then vice versa, if you're working with a married couple, let's say the husband is like, yeah, I love this idea. And the mom is like, I know what I'm doing. And I don't, like, how do you work around, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
that
no.
I'm okay
situation.
with you sharing, by the way.
Yeah,
if you
no.
want. I think it would be helpful.
No, I actually have families that I work with now that, and I'll just speak to the two parents in the home right now that have that aren't on the same page.
Yeah.
Right? So I do have situations like that, and so my thing is, the whole family is aware of the behaviors that are happening, right? And so as a behavioral coach and as somebody who's advocating for the kid, I just make it a point to identify of what's happening within that dynamic. So like, this kid is doing this, and this is a reflection of maybe you're being ignored, or a reflection of your lack of intimacy with your child as far as, like, you know, the love and the care that you're giving them, right? So typically when I'm able to point it out in that way and kind of show them and like guide them and coach them through what's happening and kind of paint the picture for them, they tend to get on board. But it is hard sometimes, and I do have some moms that are like, I've just come to the realization that I have to do this by myself, right? And that's a little hard too, because I think that the kids, they see it. And so my job as a behavioral coach and working with the mom is just like, how can we build these kids to have the confidence to stand in their power despite what the outside might look like, right? And so that's what I really try to focus on, is we have to focus on building the confidence in the kid. If dad doesn't want to be there, or if mom doesn't want to show up in the way that they need them, that's pretty much but I think having two people and working in partnership with the parent is very helpful. And that the mom wants to do something, then I always have the mom's back, or vice versa. So yeah, I don't know if that answered the question.
It did. I have another question. So you're a behavioral coach. Can you explain to us what the difference between that is and a therapist, and like when someone would enlist you versus enlisting a therapist, or just how, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I got you. So I was actually talking to Kahara, the therapist.
Okay.
She's a licensed
Change
marriage.
our lives.
She's a licensed marriage family therapist, and the best way that I can explain it is therapists are the why, right? The history, okay? And a behavioral coach is the what, right? So what's presenting right now that's having these big behaviors to where we can manage that right now to set you up better for the future. A lot of therapists, they process the history of what happened and how it's affecting you. Then, so that's why behavioral coaching and therapy in conjunction with each other is amazing. It does amazing work, and I always encourage, like Felicia, for example, like she's done the work, right? And so she knows what that looked like on a therapeutic side. So it makes it 10 times easier, more effective when I'm working with her kids, because she gets the process, right? When you don't have a parent who hasn't done the work, you're like, whew, this is, it's a difference. But going back to your previous question about the co-parenting with like Felicia and Gavin, it's great because I like they both have their different systems at home, right? But the end goal is the same, right? So like she may have her program of how she wants that to work out. He may have his program how he wants to work out, but it's still all getting them to follow directions, to respect certain languages, or and it flows. And we have like meetings together where we can come together and say, hey, what's working, what's not working, what can we do better? What can Felicia, what can she add to it? What can, dad add to it, and kind of, feel like that. So there's constant communication. Like it's a partnership.
For real.
Does it ever end?
I don't feel like behavioral coaching ever ends.
No, because the amount of changes that children
Yeah,
go through, it's like, this
exactly.
is new.
Exactly.
You just transferred to
What is this?
an adult coach.
Because every time I start off as behavioral coaching, if we're like a tantrum, now we're talking about confidence. Now we're talking about peer interaction. Now it's never just, because kids are constantly growing. And that's why like your child is in her second developmental stage of life. She's at that 3 to 6-year-old. And so now she's starting to become more aware, and she's starting to see things differently, to where now it's like, now we entered another phase.
Oh, that's the
entered
second
another dimension.
So it's 0 to 2 for the early, for the infancy, and then 3 to 6 for the early childhood.
Her daughter reminds me a lot of when Zen first started. And that's why I'm like, literally, because you know what it is? The root of it is like, they have such a strong will. And I remember taking Zen, I think I probably shared this on the podcast. I remember taking Zen to the doctor one time, and I was like, can you check him? I'm like, and the doctor was like, girl, there's nothing wrong. He's fine. He just has a strong will, and you're going to have to learn to outsmart him, which is when I was like, Kahara, I need help. And then you just came from heaven. Yeah.
I have a question in regards to parenting with the children, because I think that's something that I think a lot of parents can identify and relate to is, you're two parents raising children, but you're also two individuals. So sometimes like mom or dad are like, well, that's the way you are with the kids, and I'm dad, or I'm mom, and I'm like this with them, and I don't have to be like mom because you're mom, and I don't have to be like dad because you're dad. But I really think it's important when you have children with someone that you kind of have this alignment. You have to maintain, like, it has to be for the goal. So I think when there are issues that you're kind of facing, you have to be aligned. But I feel like it's very challenging. And in your experience, how challenging is it when you see the parents be like, well, that's a mom thing, or like that's a dad thing, and it's like, is it okay to navigate like that, or is it like, nah, y'all gotta dead that, and y'all have to be focused on the goal of what we're working towards, and you guys have to abandon your individual roles as mom or dad or partners, you know?
Ego boy.
Yeah, the ego is real.
Ego.
But no, I think that there's a few parts to that, right? One, always make sure that disagreement that you're having is not in front of the child.
That part.
Right? That should never be a thing. I don't care how much you disagree, the child needs to know that you guys are a united front. Right? That's one part of it. The other part of it is I think that sometimes parents get caught on the negative of how like a parent is, right? And sometimes it's like, okay, but what are your strengths? So if you have some strengths that you can bring into this goal that we're trying to have for this child, use your strengths, and we're going to maximize that, and I'm going to maximize my strengths, and then all the other parts of it, we'll figure that out later. But because I always say too, it's not an attack on the parents, the betterment of the child, right? And so I think sometimes, and I've had to have hard conversations like, this isn't about you,
Right.
You know, like this, but that goes to the parents that usually have not done the work themselves. You
That's
know,
a
because
bar.
when the parents have done the work themselves, they know that change doesn't happen overnight. They know that they have to be, because another part of that too is parents have to be vulnerable. You can't have empathy for a child if you're not. You can't be in relationship with people if you don't have the empathy, and empathy comes from being able to be vulnerable. How vulnerable are you willing to be for the betterment of your child? And that's a hard conversation to have with people, especially if there's a guard is up. You know, and that's why I tell people, because you know, you have to be vulnerable to allow me to come into your house and help. And that's why I'm like, we're in this together. I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here to. It's the betterment of the child.
And
We're
is
in
that
this together.
is that the best way that you feel like you work, by entering the home, or like do people come see you at an office, or like
Entering the home?
Yeah,
The reason why I like the home is because it's a safe space for the child, right? And I believe that every child, my core values is every child deserves to be heard, seen, and valued. And if this is where you feel that the most, that's where I want to be.
What was you about to say,
Cody, I'm
Cody?
like,
I just want to say,
Cody, we tapping you in.
I know, but I'm not going to contribute much. Here's what I'm going to say. And I think I can say all of this, and that my husband, who is somewhere in this building, you know, that I'm not spilling tea. So first off, I'm very quiet, but my face is doing the things.
Girl, your
if
face
you
has
watch
said
it
a
on
million
the
things.
YouTube, because everything that you're saying, like, I relate to in terms of like the two parent. Marnesha knows I called you a year ago, and we did not move forward because my dearest husband, we were not on the same page about the need. I am certainly of the philosophy that, like, number one, everybody need, you know what I mean? Everybody needs
everybody
coaching.
needs.
Everybody needs thoughtful consideration for what they're going through, right? And especially, you know, at a young age. And so for me, it's like, what's the harm? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Ultimately, I think we've gotten to a space where it's kind of like, he's like, I don't think it's necessary, but like, if you want to. And I didn't feel supported. So I was just kind of like, well, I don't like that. I don't like that energy.
Well, that's better than no.
I guess
girl.
It is
Take
better
the
than
window.
no. So I'm not, you know, hopefully. But that is certainly where it started a year ago, after probably many months of talking about it before I even called you. Anyway, so fast forward to me relating to, again, without, like, I think he understands and knows all of this, but me relating to, like, there is a lot of, well, that's how they act with you. That's what he says to me. You know, they do that with you. They don't do that with me. Right.
Because it's like, I feel like you're attacking me. Like, I'm like, you telling
Like,
me I'm
this is
doing
my
something
fault.
wrong.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I also know, in terms of how we communicate, there's a lot that's unsaid that or maybe misunderstood because it's not said, right? He could be saying that's how they behave with you, and it is what it is. It feels like that's how they behave with you, and it's your fault.
Yep.
And they would never do that with
Right.
me.
Yeah, I don't even know what you're talking about. So like,
All of this just
I don't do that.
underscores the need for
Yeah.
me. The triples down on the need for discussion with our children and you about, like you, Marnesha, about, you know, how they are processing their experiences and their emotions and then communicating them, because I know there's a disconnect. I'm wearing out the therapist at the school. I love the fact that we have a Black male therapist at our kids' school, and but I am wearing him out.
He's like, girl, get somebody else to do it. All right,
For
now,
real.
Cody.
Hell, talk about mom guilt. I'm like, sir, I apologize. But so I just say that to say all of this is underscoring that need, and I will definitely be playing this one for him, because. And also the wake up call for me that, like, we don't exactly have to be on the same page about it. To me, I know for sure there's nothing but benefit to having an expert come in and take inventory of the situation and then be able to say, this is what I see. You know, and Cody is right. No, I'm just kidding.
You're going to end up being wrong. Watch.
I know, and
do
that's
you feel
okay.
like the kids, like, from your perspective and you being, like, experiencing so many different families, do you feel like the kids show up differently with dad than the way they have to do with the mom?
Sometimes, yes. And
Like,
I
what's the difference?
And I think it's the parent's approach, right? Because, like, how I talk to you is not going to be the same way that I talk to Ashley, who I just met, right? And I think that just the way that certain parents communicate and certain And like I think with moms, you know, moms are typically the more vulnerable one, the more nurturing one, the more, you know, and so kids tend to gravitate to that to get all the backlash. And, you know, the dads are usually like the fun ones and the joyous ones. So they get like the get in check because I know I can have some fun here. And so I think you do see different type of behaviors, but that doesn't mean that just because there's two different type of behaviors with the parent that it can't look the same. And I like to, because I have one family that I work with where I call the dad a sugar high, right? He's the sugar.
Oh,
like,
and you just pass it
yeah,
back.
and what happens when kids get off the sugar high?
They crash.
Right? And so then the mom's left with the tantrum and dealing with all the backlash, right? So how can we find some balance? It's cool to throw sugar in there, but you don't need to overindulge your child in sugar, right? And so I think that's what it is, and that's the part that, like, okay, so tell me about your strengths where you get them to act like this. Tell me about your strengths where you get them to kind of come to you and talk to you. Now, how can we both show up to get that to happen, right? And it's not easy because, again, you have to be vulnerable in order to do that.
That's a game changer. There's definitely been times that I've called their dad and I'm like, I just can't. He's like, well, something that I do is this. And I'm like, oh, it actually does work.
Yeah.
But I really feel like the obviously everything is rooted in love, but that ego is, you know, it's like,
And
just
that's
to
a part
put
of
it to the side.
Yeah, and that's the part where you have to reparent yourself.
Yeah.
Right? You have to know that this isn't about me. It's not a target on me, but it's the betterment of the child.
Yeah.
And then you have to kind of check yourself
I've had to check
in
myself
that
so many
ego to better move forward, right? And it's difficult. It's hard.
It's funny because so this morning we were in a group chat and we were talking about our kids driving us crazy or whatever. And it was so funny because I thought about something. So Felicia was telling me, like, you know, you need to call Marnesha, blah, blah. But I did, and I called Melanie afterwards because I had a realization that I think one thing we have to remember is that every family needs something different. And everybody's problem is something different. I already know that I'm the problem in my house. It's not my kids.
The first
It's
step
me.
is admitting it.
I'm the problem, it's me. And I realized that, so it's so funny because she's giving me advice, but even within that advice, I was like, it's not applicable to me because I am the problem. Like, I've overindulged my children and I'm not consistent at all with discipline. And so now I have 4 kids. So I started parenting differently after I had my youngest child. We both have 3-year-olds.
Gotcha.
And what I was doing was like not being consistent because I was tired. So I started like giving in when I normally would not. So, but this has been 3 years. You have to think, I have a 6-year-old, so she was 3 when I started doing this. I have an 8-year-old. She was 5 when I started doing this. Is that the math? I think, yeah. You got it. Okay. Okay, I'm struggling here. And then my 15-year-old, so she was like 13, right? So those are pivotal. Those are like really important ages, like when they're starting, like you said, like these new chapters, right? So where I was consistent with the first 3 almost, where it was like, you know, like with the iPad and the T, like we're pretty much like, you don't use your iPad really at home at all, like only on Fridays. And like, if I said you couldn't do something, then you couldn't do it. But then when I had the baby, it turned into me being like, okay, just go. By the end of the day, I'm like if they got in trouble earlier, right? And I'm like, you can't use your iPad today. But by 3-4 o'clock, because I homeschool my children, I'm home with my kids 24/7. By like 3 o'clock, I'm like, just use iPad because I'm tired. I didn't get no sleep. I'm breastfeeding. I have a baby. So I think for me right now, my home is going through a shift because my husband, like, his parenting style to me is better. You know what I mean? Like, he grew up with immigrant parents, and it's not as harsh as like those typical stories, but he's very like, he's consistent. His no means no. You know what I mean? Like, he has rules that you have to follow and you need to do them before you can do something else. And he's not shifting on that ever. Whereas I'm saying that, but then I'm not doing it. Do you know what I mean? Because so he always calls me a sucker. He was like, oh, you a sucker, man. That's why they go to you. He's like, because they already know they're going to get over on you. You're going to say yes. And so for me, the hardest thing has been like, I need to change before I can ask them to change. But now they're like losing their minds because I'm sticking to my no. And I'm just trying to give them grace because it's irritating me. But a lot of my parenting for the past 3 years has been survival. Like, I just want everybody to be quiet sometimes. Do you know what I mean? And then I feel bad because I'm like, this is why I tell people not to have a bunch of kids, because the type of mother that I want to be to each one of them, it's really hard to be that type of mother to 4 different people in 4 different age groups. And so I'm constantly having to change, and I'm constantly having to remember, like, to turn it on and off for each kid. And it's just like it's about being consistent and me having discipline myself, but this is the decision that I made of the type of mother that I want to be. And I think every household has to make that decision. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and I think that the good thing about what you're saying is, one, first of all, you made yourself aware, right? Because in the end, I tell families all the time, it gets harder before it gets better, right? It gets 10 times harder before it gets better.
It's gonna get harder than this.
But for every era of their life, you're having to introduce something different. So therefore, you're still going to get that backlash when you start to, especially with consistency, in a place that you haven't been consistent, you're going to get that push up, right? But as soon as they see you standing firm, the kids will fall in line because they want the stick. Now, I'm a big fan of reward systems. I give reward systems. That is like a game changer. Reward systems are a game changer. Give a kid some stickers and it's a game changer.
Is a reward different than an incentive?
Ooh.
Oh. So I think with the incentive, that's a really good question. Let me answer this correctly. I would say yes, right? I would say yes because, like, for example, what are some of the incentives that you're giving?
So, like, for example, my sister-in-law is staying with us to help us out right now.
Okay.
She is very firm with like boundaries and like, these kids are smart enough to understand, like, you want to do something, you got to do what you need to do before you do what you want to do. So right now, my daughter wants to go to this jumpy place. She loves going to the jumpy place. And my sister-in-law is like, hey, she's like, if you keep screaming in the night, we can't go to the jumpy place. I need you to stay in your bed and I need you to stop screaming through the night. And only then will auntie take you to the jumpy place because that's their thing. That's what they do together.
So that's the bigger.
So that's the bigger.
So is that a reward or an incentive?
So that's what I'm saying. It to me, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, when you say stickers, like, of course, like, kids love, oh my gosh, you did great. Here's a sticker. Put it on your chart. But I also have a daughter where I don't really know what, like, she's the type of kid that'll just be like, fine.
Because she's still screaming through the night.
She's still screaming through the night. Like last night I told her, I was like, you want to come? I was like, if you scream and you were trying to come in mommy and daddy's bed, auntie is not going to take you to the jumpy place.
Right.
And she's just like, but I want to come here. I was like, okay, then you're not going to go to the jumpy place.
Yeah.
Like in my mind, this is what I'm saying. I haven't figured out how to outsmart her yet, right? Like I haven't figured out what that thing is that's going to get her to respond.
Right.
So when I say like rewards and incentives, like what is the difference between like, is something, I hate to use better or worse, like what's more effective?
Yeah, so I feel like what
works with children at that age.
I feel like what works with children is more of like a reward system, right? And I say that too because, for example, we'll use a sticker chart as for example, right? If a kid, because you're telling the little girl that I need you to do this and I need you to do that, and you can get this bigger reward, but in her mind, she doesn't see the tangible steps she's taken to reach that goal, right? So with the reward chart, it's like, hey, last night you did a really good job sleeping. I'm so proud of you. Here's your sticker, because you always want them to reward it, right? You want them to feel the power of earning
physical
something,
connection,
physical connection. And so you let them stay, and it's like, hey, look, you have 4 more days. You need 4 more stickers to get to that bigger reward of going to the jump house, right? Versus being like, all right, if you don't do this, you're not gonna get it. Because in a kid's mind, it's like, I ain't gonna get it.
I ain't gonna get it.
They're like, I don't see myself earning it anyways, and there's nothing visually for me to see it, so I don't care, right? Kids need to know that they're working towards something. They need to see that
the visual is that important. The visual is that important?
Absolutely. Especially with kids that age, right? Because they can't read, they're still trying to process. And so kids like I would say like, I mean, a lot of kids like sticker charts, but definitely like 3, 4, 5, for sure. You need to have like a...
She could come in my house and tell my husband that his answer is, in my Asian household, you just do what you're supposed to do.
That part. That's my mom.
Like he never get a, he was like, he never got a sticker or nothing. His dad worked at night. He was like, he gave me math problems on the board. And when he came home, the math problems had to be done. And that's it. But he's like never got yelled at by his father, never got in trouble.
But how well was the emotional connection in that home?
With him and his daughters?
Well, no, him and his family.
I don't know, girl. All them the same. It's a different culture. You know,
I got you.
If you're asking me on the outside looking in, I feel like there's an emotional disconnect. But if you ask him, there's not. Because
that's like his normal.
Yeah, because he loves his dad so much, and he shows up for him, and his dad shows up for him. And like, if his dad called him right now and was like, "Hey, I'm mowing my lawn," my husband would stop doing everything, go over there and mow his dad's lawn. Gotcha. So for him, because that the desire and the connection for him is like the physical, do you know what I mean? Like acts of service. That's their love language within their family. They just show up.
Culture
and they just do.
Too,
yes.
sure.
It's not, they don't say I love you, but they pay bills and
They
take care of
got
each other.
you.
Do you know what I mean?
Got
So it's,
you.
and I'm very much like words of affirmation are
Yeah.
probably my number one love language.
Gotcha.
Like, I need you to tell me good job and you did great and all of these things.
yeah.
So there's a huge disconnect with us and how we parent because of that. Do you know what I
So-
mean?
Yeah, no, I hear you.
It's so funny because it's like Chia has 4 girls.
I know.
4 girls.
And it's
5
wild
if
to
you can
me.
Ashley.
Yeah, right. That's true.
Yeah, but did you see how so earlier my
He's the sweetest
he popped
thing.
when
He's the
we were
sweetest
recording one of these days, my husband
He's so sweet.
Recently, just say recently.
recently my husband popped up because he is working with the fires as part of his job, and he has to be on catastrophe duty. So I haven't seen him like all morning. I didn't see him last night, and so then he just popped up while we were recording, and he brought me some orange juice because I was telling him I'm starting to feel under weather. Like, that's how he loves. You know what I mean? Like,
Acts
he
of
wouldn't
service.
just randomly
Service, yeah.
he might text me I love you, sure, but he's gonna just pop up here with orange juice and be like, I haven't seen you all morning.
Got you.
And then
Very
leave.
supportive.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah.
very supportive partner.
Yeah, he is, but like when you have, I don't like to say boys, girls, because I feel like, yes, there are some things that only boys do and only girls do maybe, but there's a lot of intertwined that I just think boys aren't able to be tapped into depending on how they're parented.
For sure.
But our daughters are very emotional.
For sure.
And I'm emotional. And the way when they get upset, it is very emotional. I'm gonna tell you a quick story, and you can tell me how I handled it wrong.
You can tell me how I handled it.
I don't know. How self-aware are you?
I'm very self-aware.
okay, okay,
Nothing
okay.
hurts my feelings. Unless you don't tell me I did a good job.
Yeah, I don't know about nothing.
Tell me
hurts
I'm
her
doing a good
feelings.
job.
Hurts
Okay.
my feelings. I said,
No, it's not. Unless you say something to me about my husband, I might punch you in your teeth. But other than that, I'm fine.
No.
Or your parenting.
Marisha was
Wait,
like, oh,
her other rule is don't say nothing about my parenting.
No, not y'all, because y'all not professionals. Okay, so listen. You're not. So it's just opinion based, and that doesn't work with me. I need facts.
Lord.
So listen, yesterday, one of my children, I'm not going to call him out, one of my children was having a really hard time.
Can you at least tell me the age?
She's 8.
Okay.
She's 8 years old.
Now we know which one.
Yeah. You said what?
So now we know which child. But go ahead. Sorry.
Right. Okay, it was Azara. I'm sorry, girl. You didn't see this one day. You knew you were 8.
I'm sorry, girl.
No, I mean, she's a Virgo. She gonna see this and do the math. She was talking about me. And so she just was having a hard day. Now, she had already wrote me a letter to apologize. And I told her sister, I said she has to, I made her read the kids' book about kindness. And I said, you have to write me a paragraph on why it's important to be kind and be respectful. And her older sister was babysitting them. So I'm trying to, I was like, she has to do that before she can watch TV. But after that, just let them watch TV because, she's 15 at home with her 3 sisters. I'm not trying to put a lot of pressure on her. Let them watch TV. So she sends me a text message of the note. Everything's fine. I get home. At this point, their dad is home. And so it's like bedtime. She's the only one who's not in bed, got her bonnet on, and she's like mad, face red, everything. I was like, what is going on right here? He was like, she was being disrespectful to her. This is an ongoing thing with her and the baby. She doesn't want the baby touching anything in their room, right? So her and the 6-year-old share a room. The baby's in our room. So she hates when the baby comes in there, touches their dollhouse. The dollhouse is a point of contention for her. I went and bought the 3-year-old her own Barbies. So I'm like, let her play with you, but now she has her own dolls. She's not touching your dolls. But she's really type A, low-key, very controlling child, right? She is.
Big Virgo
It's like OCD times 10.
Yeah.
So her biggest thing is she don't want nobody touching her because she wants everything to be the way she wants it, how she wants people. And it is, but it turns into a little aggression. Yeah. So I guess, because her 6-year-old came and told on her, and she came, I was like, what is going on? And she was like, she took Tata's head and turned her head. So she was like, she took the baby's head.
Exorcism vibes?
But took her head and was like, get out of here.
Dang.
Physically turned her head, get out. I know. And
gosh.
so then, this is what took me over there. She told her, I wish you were never born.
Oh,
Jesus, when they
And
do
I was
that,
like,
can't.
what kind of TV show are you? Where did this even come from?
Yeah.
So I was like, we don't talk now, obviously this is trauma based because my sister died. I don't play with that. I hate
In
you
general,
and wish you
that's
were dead
like-
stuff. That's
yeah,
out
no.
in my home. That's no. I don't care how you're feeling. There's a better way to articulate yourself. So she got in trouble by her dad. And so when he told her to go to bed, she stomped through the room. So he was like, you need to go back and walk back respectfully. Bro, for a fucking hour, 50 times, she would not back. She stomped every effing time.
Give it up for the strong will.
From the playroom
that's
to her,
true.
and he was like, nope, turn around. No, for an hour,
with it.
it was the 50th time I came out the room and I said, you got one more time, I'm taking the trash bag and throwing all this stuff in the house away. Like, cause at this point I had can you please stop? Let's calm down. Can you breathe? Can you, nothing was working. So I was like, I'm gonna just throw everything in here away. And then I'm gonna put you outside. Cause at this point, like, I want to go to bed.
Yeah.
But I just feel like, I know that wasn't the best way to handle it, but I really just don't know. In your profession, like, what would you have suggested instead of, even if him telling her to walk back and forth, like, was that wrong? Like, I don't even know what we were supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is, I feel like with kids, I hate to say things, like, there are some things that are just wrong, right? Don't get me wrong. There are some things that are just
yanking
wrong.
Somebody's head.
But it's all a learning process, right? But
Right.
what was happening with your child was that she was standing firm in her ground, right? She didn't want to lose. But the part, because after you said that to her, right, and you said, I'm gonna throw your toys away and stuff, she was able to get it together?
I mean, yeah, it was like I think she was just tired.
Okay, but it may have
legs
been,
was
it
cramping.
may have been tired, but a kid with strong will, and this is why it works so well with Zen, they need choices. You want to put them in a position where they feel like they're in power and like they've ever taken control, because she wanted her control back. She didn't have control when the
Yes.
baby came in and touched her toes, her toys. I said toes, her toys. So now, how can I get my control back, right?
is what
And
it's
so
about,
she was like, I'm standing firm in here because I can control how I stump. I can control if I go back and forth. I couldn't control my sister, and that makes me angry, right? So in those positions, you give them choices like, hey, you can continue to sit here and stomp your feet and do all that and go back and forth, or whatever the other option is, right? And like you make the choice, right? Because now you're like, she's like, oh, okay, well, I got some power. I'm gonna go to my room, but it ain't because you said so. It's because I chose it.
Literally
Right.
what she did. She was like,
Yeah, and
and
that's
just walk quietly to her room.
yeah,
that's so crazy
because
to
you
hear,
gave her
though.
the choices, right? And you put her back, you gave her power back to make a choice. Now, the only thing I would say is somebody was sitting there with her while she's stumping back and forth.
So her dad was sitting right here, and the door is right here. And every time she would walk back, he would be like, no, go to your room respectfully. She would stomp. He would like turn around, go back. Like, and he was just sitting there on his phone the whole time she was doing it, because I think after like the 10th time, he completely disengaged. And I know for him, it's like, I had a rule when we first started dating, like, you can never put your hands on our daughters. I just think it's weird for a father to hit their children. So for him, I think because he doesn't, there's no hitting, and he doesn't really have the tools, and it's not just him, me neither. You know, like, my mom whooped, and I don't whip either, but sometimes we feel like stifled, because I'm like, if I'm not hitting them and I'm using my calm, nice Caucasian voice, neither one of them are working.
Right.
So then you
Yep.
just disengage, because you're like, I can't hit your ass, and I can't call you a mother effer.
Yeah.
Like, that's what we knew growing up. So
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know what to do.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. So I think that
Right.
1-800 Marnesha.
I'd be like, wait, what? I need to do. I'm like, oh, I just needed to give him a choice.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
So wait, I have
So
questions, and we do have to like get to our listener letter soon. But like, one question is, so
Ashley's like, I need a session right now.
are the right
For free.
are the two choices in this example? You can keep stomping, and I will throw all your toys away, or you can walk calmly to your room and you get to keep your things. Is that an example of two choices?
I always say, when you give two choices, make sure they work in your favor. You always give choices that work in your favor.
Okay.
So in that situation, it's going to get rid of the toys, right? Are those toys bothered? Are those toys the one that's causing the chaos? Or
Also, like, I should have.
so you could have said, hey, like, you know, you either get into your room and, you know, if you want to
Keep
keep
the
stomping,
dollhouse.
whatever, or we're going to go ahead and remove that dollhouse, right? So that's just an example, as an example of something working in your favor, because either she stops stomping, great, or we're going to eliminate the problem, right? You choose which one we're going to do, right? And that's just an example.
Yeah.
You know, so they want them to work in your favor.
So then my issue always, and I'm not saying you have a solution, I'm just stating this because I feel like I'm probably not alone. I really struggle with coming up with the choices in the moment. Like later on, I'm like, oh, I should have said this. But in the moment, I'm like, you know, I'm gonna take your shit and I'm gonna throw it away. You know what I mean? Or like in the moment, I have no clue
Right.
what to say.
Yeah, and so that's why I always tell parents to make sure you have coping skills, right? Because you have to be able to tap out and be like, all right, let me, you know, get myself calm, because you can't fight fire with fire, right? So you got to get yourself calm, and in that calm space, you're able to kind of more problem solve through that. But I will always say, think about the what's happening and what you want to happen, or and two things that can get to what you want to happen.
Girl, that's
right.
work.
So
I mean, I get
if
it,
a kid
but-
is like tantruming, you're like, listen, you can either go to your room and read a book, or you can go outside and play with your siblings. period. But you're stopping
remember
that.
I think
what
that-
about the earphone things? Tell them the earphone thing. Remember when Zen used to just like scream, and I used to be like, "Oh my God!" It would like stress me out, and you were like, "V, you gotta learn."
Yeah.
And she literally told me like, "You need to go put earphones on or go in the other room," and he has to learn, and it would drive me because I wanted to be like, "Just eat the damn donut," or "Just do this."
Right.
I couldn't even, but I had to learn to like, and then like literally over time, the repetitiveness, you get better at it, and then they just become trained. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay, you're role modeling.
I have a question. I have one thing that I'd like to say, because I'm sure like moms who are listening or parents who are listening and anyone's listening, it's just like, okay, but what do I do? So if there were 3 things that you could say are your favorite strategies or approaches to, like, I feel like choices is already one of them.
Absolutely.
Like, right?
Absolutely.
You know, like if there were 3 things that you could say that you could try with your children, who, if you're having a hard time communicating or, you know, compliance, whatever it is, what would 3 of your favorite ones be?
3 of my favorites. So definitely choices. Reward system, some type of reward system.
Visual
reward system, something that's tangible. And for a third one, I would say
put on a motherfucking earphone.
Get you a pair of noise cancellation.
She
no.
bought me some for my birthday too.
Those are usually like my
That's for the parents.
yeah. Those are like the 2. But I would also say role modeling your own coping skills, right? So in the middle of and being able to voice it, like I'm getting frustrated and I'm feeling disrespected right now. So because I can feel my body getting angry, I'm gonna go put on my headphones and go listen to music and actively ignoring the behavior. You have to actively ignore.
Ignore. That is the
Actively ignore.
hardest.
See, that's what Chia's good at, and I'm not. That's why he just goes somewhere
Because
else.
these kids, like, I mean, my daughter will literally grab on me. She will pull at my
Yep.
clothes.
Attention.
Yep.
It's attention seeking.
Yes.
And you're saying so many things. That my husband has a cousin who works. She's a teacher and she works with children. And I came back from Thanksgiving telling them, I was like, guys, I've been trying these new techniques. You got to remove the audience, remove your child from the audience. You got to have you have to have 3 compliance things so you know that they're ready to get back in the game. Like, I've been practicing all these things. It is so interesting to hear how consistent that is of what that is. And she was saying, she's like, you have to ignore. She's like, if you have to go remove yourself from dinner and sit in the car with her while she is having her moment until she is calm, you got to just be. And that's the one thing that I'll have. I think what's happening for me in this season, and I think a lot of parents can understand, there is a physical thing that happens. And I don't know if it's the mothers and because they're connected but DNA with the wombs, I don't know, the nervous system. My body feels like it's going into overdrive shock when the I don't know what to do, you know?
like an ulcer.
Yeah, like it's like my whole body
Yes.
is just like it just got into a car accident, and I just feel like my nervous system is just in a constant state of trauma because I don't know what to do, and I think that's the thing that what you're saying is like role modeling your coping skills. That's why I'm like, oh, I need to go talk to somebody and get a new set of skills,
girl.
because whatever I've been doing is not working in this season. So I need to figure out how to be an example, outsmart, give the choices, empower. Like, these are all very enlightening concepts
Yeah,
to
and
me.
you guys also have to remember, like, you guys are constantly being triggered by kids, right? They're
Constantly.
constantly being triggered, and they're tapping on places that may or may not be
Healed
healed
within
within
yourself.
you, like, you know. And so to face that every single day, that's a hard thing to do.
And I'll say this, just not to like, I know we like gotta kind of wrap it up too, but
Wrap it up.
it's like, it's like the thing that I think about as a child. I had a mom who was very strict, and she was an immigrant parent, and it was do as I say. Your opinion, I don't care about your like, get over it, let's go, you know.
Yeah.
So I think I have a deep trigger and sensitivity to wanting to always be seen, heard, and understood, and valued, right? So when my daughter is screaming at these things and begging for these, like there's a part of me that, like, because of how I was raised, wants to be like, you just got to do what I say.
Yeah.
But then there's also another part of me, I'm like, am I missing the cue where she doesn't feel seen or heard right now? So then I'm balancing, right?
Yeah.
This thing of like guilt and like, I don't want to miss the cues. I don't want to repeat history, but also I don't want to be, but then are you manipulating me?
But that's
like,
the point that I would encourage you to reparent yourself in that moment.
But you do it when she comes to the house and she's teaching her, you literally see like, oh my God, I need to actually do what Marnesha is saying too. So you really activate. That's why I was like, the ego, you move it to the side and you really tap into that inner child. And it's uncomfortable. And it's like, well, what the hell? But literally, if I'm stressed out, I can hear Marnisha's voice. Like, what should you be doing right now? You know,
Don't
and
do
I'm like,
it.
that's why I was like, no, you're so magical because it is a family experience.
Yeah.
You know.
Wait, before we
Child.
cut, question: when you come to people's homes, like how often do you come, and like what does that look like, real quick?
It depends on how severe the behavior is that you're wanting to address. But at least 1 to 2 times a week.
Okay.
I will go to a child's house.
And then as it starts to get better, does it like teeter down? Or?
Yeah, so I always tell families, if you want to start off intense, let's start off as intense and then start to work, because I don't want to start off slow and then increase.
Yeah.
Because then that's when the kid's like, well, what did I do? I'm like, you know,
okay.
so.
Like, oh,
yeah.
Marnisha's
Yeah,
back gang.
yeah, exactly.
How long do you stay at the house?
Anywhere for, well, I mean, sometimes I got like 3 kids in one house. It's like, but an hour each. But the whole hour is not always with the kid, depending on the age.
Well, you're going to be in my house, so I'm just trying to let you know that you need to free up your time.
You got an
Oh,
extra
kids.
bedroom, you know what I mean? Just move Marnisha in.
Just move in.
Give me a couch.
All right, y'all.
You
Well,
like play dolls with them.
Oh, good. I don't want to.
So then you get to see the kids playing and interacting, and she'll be able to hear them interacting. Let's say it's Tata and AZ. So then it's like, oh, I can correct you in this moment.
Yeah, Tata be like, oh, die, because that's where it's
not die. Well, love this. All right, y'all. We have our listener letter. Remember, if you have questions for the Mama's Den, hit us at podcasts with an S at blacklove.com or on Mark Zuckerberg's internet at the Mama's Den podcast.
Sorry to that man. Okay, our listener letter today says, I appreciate the Mama's Den so 10 times much. I've been a listener since the first episode, well before having my daughter. Aww. I hope this question doesn't overstep, but I could use some level-headed advice. When my daughter was 6 months old, I discovered her father had an affair that escalated physically when she was 3 months old, as I was suffering from postpartum depression that required medication treatment. I immediately resolved to stay in the relationship since we have been together for 12 years, and there are more positives than negatives despite this huge negative. We started couples therapy the week of discovery at my partner's initiation. My question is, do you all have any advice on practical steps to forgiveness, and more specifically on how to not let feelings of resentment interfere with the legitimate rebuilding process? Since punching him in the face randomly for the next year is not a real option, LOL.
It's not.
Thank you all. Wow.
I'm not going to answer this question.
I was about to say I understand and can relate to this, but I don't really have I don't think you want to hear my answer.
Me neither. I think the two of you should give her a nice mature.
Who's the two of you?
I don't know.
Marnisha.
Okay, Marnisha, you
Marnisha.
answer because it can't.
Marnisha, like, I'm with the kids. I don't know what you got.
I'm with the kids playing dolls.
The 3-month-old.
First of all,
trying to
thank
make it
you
work.
so much.
No,
Yes,
Thank you for this
thank
very
you
vulnerable
so
letter.
much
Yes.
for
I think that's a very
being an audience, being our family, our listening to the Mama's Den for as long as you have. We're very grateful. We don't support domestic violence. No, none of us want to tell you what to do. I think that's probably the gist of how we feel
I
first.
guess we can
the
do
one
practical
thing
steps
that
of forgiveness.
I would like to, I would like to
Yeah.
approach it from the forgiveness standpoint.
There we go.
I think that it's really important that you identify where you're still healing versus where you're punishing. And I think that like that's a thing that we often feel like, you know, like where you have to be like active working. And I also feel like it's a partner. You said your partner initiation to go to therapy, which I think is really big, because I don't feel like you can heal what's not addressed and been accountable for.
There you go.
So if your partner is making the attempts to say, hey, I want to heal through this with you, and you're showing up, then it's like, okay, we're both actively doing the work. And I think that nobody can decide how you heal and how long it takes. I truly believe that like in partnership, you gotta, if you're really down for it, you're gonna be there as long as it takes.
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't get to decide, oh, well, it's been a year, so you should be over that shit by now. And it's like, no, you don't get to decide what my healing is. You don't get to dictate how I process this. But I feel like it's active and it's a partnership to be able to do so. So I think like when it says, you know, we can't forget things. We're human beings. Like we're not just like Men in Black, shine a light on me and it's over, you know, even though some things we do wish we could forget, you know. I think it's working through and understanding what it's going to sound bad because I know people don't like when we say this, when people do offensive things to us, but having compassion, I think, is a really big place to start. having compassion for yourself and your partner for whatever is going on. Sometimes people are not their best version of themselves. Sometimes they do respond from their traumas. Sometimes they do, show up from a place of unhealed ego or trauma. And sometimes we can understand what they're capable of or not, no matter how much it does hurt us. But I think active work together, I think, would be the right place to start. It sounds like you're there, but you're gonna feel how you gotta feel. Some days you might see that man and feel triggered and be like, damn, I wanna punch you in the face. I'm not going to, because I'm actively working on healing. And forgiveness, I really always say, is about yourself. It's about you.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say too. I think
Give them choices.
I think the bigger thing is, how much are you willing to forgive yourself? Right? Because I think that there's a lot of guilt in this kind of situation that comes along with that, especially when you choose to stay. And I think that being able to forgive yourself for whatever it is a key point too to what you were saying.
That's real.
I know that's right.
You know what? Yes, that is good advice. And you can have, it doesn't have to be infidelity. Every marriage has something, or relationship has something that people have had to get over or forgive. I would say, like Felicia was mentioning earlier, dying of the ego. I think that in any situation where you're moving forward with your partner, you both have to actively decide at some point to let it go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If your partner is, and I always say it takes two. If they're willing to go to therapy with you and y'all are working through it, odds are you probably will be able to work through it, because you're both actively, that's the goal, right? You're going with the goal that we want to stay together, we want to move through this. But as Melanie said, give yourself grace, and your partner has to give you grace. Like, there's not a timeline, but you do have to decide, are you grieving or are you punishing? Do you know what I mean? And that's like, do you know what I mean?
We all know.
And if you're punishing, then I'm always an advocate of, like, take a break. And if you are at the point where you still need to punish, then you need to take a break and heal from that, and then come back together and heal and moving forward, because you cannot move forward with anyone if you're still punishing them.
Also,
it's batting.
I would just like to say I'm really sorry, because we hear this story a lot about women who are going through postpartum depression, and their partners are, there's usually a time of insecurity or infidelity, or like, we hear this story a lot. And it, not to say like it's like, it's standard, but I think what's happening here is that we need to recognize that there's a lot going on for both people in that time after having children. Now, I'm not making excuses for anybody, but there's a lot of changes for everyone involved, transitions of new roles and new pressures and new things. And I think that, like, again, to the point is, like, understanding, like, we can all exercise compassion for ourselves and each other as we grow. And we recently had a guest on our podcast where she was talking about the journey of going through feelings of resentment with her partner, and how they had to work through things, loss of a parent, all these things. And, like, really having the understanding and compassion in the partnership to be like, all right, what are we working towards? And are we actively working together to get there and not against one another?
I know that's
I
right.
think I'm going to say something too, because I've experienced this before. I think you also need to make a decision. You're either going to stay and work on it, or you're going to leave, and that's what it is. Don't be in limbo. When you're in limbo, it's just you stressed out, it's up and down. So it's like, if you're going to forgive him, then you need to make sure that you lean into that. And if you need your own individual therapy to get through that, I highly, highly recommend that. I think it's more of like, again, if you're going to stay, then you might need to do your individual work as well. So
That was good.
make a choice.
We love you, girl. Okay, well, all right, mamas, that's a wrap for today's show. For all the things the Mamas Den, follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a rating and review if you're on Apple, and we will see you soon.
Thank you, Marnesha.
Thank you, Marisha.
Thanks for listening and
Thank you,
watching.
guys. Thank
You
you.
made it
Thank
to
you,
the
thank you.
day.
I loved having you on here.
Thanks
I'll
for
be
having
calling
me.
you.
Yay!